So right, I think this whole thing has already been vetted out to the public. There were 27 GASA meetings, hearings to help develop this. There's been input from the GASA committee, from the governor, from the legislature, have all had input to this and been approved. So it's still, it needs to go out there again, but it's been vetted for the last year or so.
So we had a comment earlier, very apropos comment about the travel at commuter hours across the Newington-Dover Bridge, especially on the Newington side coming back northbound. So I just wanted to quickly draw everybody's attention on the last page to Project 20244, labeled for Seacoast. These are CMAQ funds that provide, well, as it says here, through capital equipment purchases and operating support, the project will increase peak hour transit services. This is in part a major coast project that was just launched at the very end of June to expand commuter services between this whole region and Portsmouth, especially with a focus on the trade port. I have had the pleasure of actually driving some of those runs because it added so much work that we have not been able to get staff trained, new staff trained quick enough, which is a great problem to have. But in addition to all of our, bigger political concerns about adding jobs and successfully doing that, we're also adding a lot of public transit services that people need to avail themselves of because they're all complaining about being stuck behind the bus that could have brought them home. And if even half of them were on the bus, there would not be that traffic jam issue, which of course clears up as soon as you clear the crest of the bridge. But driving mechanics notwithstanding, that service has been running since late June and is doing quite well, and I encourage you to share among your friends who I'm sure you know at least one person who works at the trade port or the shipyard, and we're providing expanded options now that work really well for commuter times, and I can vouch for that because I was down there yesterday afternoon when all the traffic was pouring out of Pease, and they were sitting right alongside a bus full of people. So spread the word. Thank you.
Yeah, just from a historic perspective, this whole process, as was discussed, this is the very last end of the update process that takes 2 years. And so several years ago, the legislature would give DOT the new 10-year plan, and DOT staff would prepare the new their state transportation improvement program, and we would prepare our transportation improvement program for the region. And we had to get it done by September 30th, which was the close of the federal fiscal year. And then sometime in the last couple of cycles, there's been some slippage, and the DOT has been able to get theirs due date in December. So, mindful of federal agencies can always go back to their other firm deadlines. I've been trying to work with within our region to make sure we get this approved as quickly as possible so that it's compatible with any changes in scheduling deadlines that DOT or the other MPOs may have. And so we're trying to be reflective of what is actually out there as a federal deadlines and be cognizant of that and supportive of DOT's efforts. So we can do a 45 or 60 day, whatever time period so that we pick up most of September. So if we started it at August 15th after the next meeting or whatever date it is that we have the meeting, we could run it out, additional, depending upon our conversation with DOT and whether their deadline in December is firm. So right now I'm not sure that deadline is firm. So.
Thank you. Ken?
We're talking in the context of the end of one process, but being in planning, that's the beginning of another process. And I'm thinking that in addition to what we're talking about here, let's be proactive. Let's be thinking about if this stuff is up on the web at some point in time, it would seem to me maybe we ought to have a link here that says, for the next process coming up, do you have suggestions so that we can start being much more proactive in terms of getting people's input and things of that sort on an ongoing basis. So we're ending this one, but let's take the opportunity to make sure that we implement policies, procedures, techniques, whatever, so we can be as proactive as possible next time around.
I could actually address that just quickly. The next real step in our process, other than, we have a number of other federally mandated documents we have to do, but for this process, our next big step is going back out to communities and doing project solicitation again. That's going to be coming up, this fall, this winter, hopefully a little sooner than it did last time. This was my first time around last time. With that said, we've been working on the project portfolio, this database of master list of all projects, whether they're happening or not, wherever they are in the process, with documents attached and pictures. One of the goals this year, this time around, is really to get those onto some form of map, whether it's Google Map or a GIS layer on Esri, and be able to send that out to communities so they can actually take a look at where we have projects lined up for them, what we already have in our database. They're going to be able to go in live and hopefully, click on it, add a new project if they need to, or really just get that aerial view of their town, which I think is really helpful when you're trying to find projects that need to be done in the future. You don't have the money for them now, but maybe in 20 years you want to do this project. That is the goal, and really just have those open and available for people. Once those are in some form of mapping program, I think is what it would need to be, so you could have that really visual thing. We can just have those up so people can look at them, and hopefully once we contact communities, they can actually really go into them and make some changes to it or send us a list of new ideas. But we're really going to have that, trying to get that whole project list more open, that whole process more open for new projects and more dynamic, so that it's more of a continuous process rather than giving you that one 2-month period to figure out all your projects for the next 20 years and then you're 2 years later showing it to you in a list, but actually having that be available over time.
Thank you.
Okay. Project update. Mark and anyone else has any project updates?
Dan might have a couple of these here.
Okay.
So just want to give a quick update. We're doing traffic counts still. I'm sure you've seen the 2 rubber strips out in the road that count cars, count speed. If there are any local count requests, so anything that's not on our DOT list that you need to do for a project, maybe you're having a new business move in, you need to just get a traffic volume on a road that we don't usually measure or haven't for a few years, please let us know now. The sooner the better. We have interns now. They're really good at going out and doing counts, and they cost a lot less money than us going out and doing counts in November. So yeah, let us know as soon as possible if you know that you're going to have any counts in your community, or send that message back to somebody in your community, public works director, somebody like that, who may have an idea of what the needs are. Wanted to give a quick update about some of the other data collection activities we're doing. We're doing probe runs to measure free flow time and delay time at peak hours, so commuter hours primarily, between 7 and 8 or 7 and 9 and 4 and 6 p.m. Those are going pretty well. We have 2 people going out with a GPS recording their runs. It takes a measurement every 3 seconds and gives you some GPS coordinates for that, and through that we can find out average speed, and we can compare that to free flow speed, which is when there's no cars on the road, and really gain an understanding of delay on some of our roads. The roads we're focusing on right now are Route 125. We're doing that whole route. Route 108, we're trying to get that one finished up this year, and that's from up here all the way down to the southern portion of the region. And we're doing a section of Route 4. We're not able to tackle the whole thing. It's pretty time consuming. We need to, number of iterations of each of these runs so that we have more of a true average. We think over time this data is going to become really powerful and let us know which projects really work. which projects maybe don't work so well, so we can spend our money a little bit better in the future. Along with doing that, we are doing some quality assurance on our access point layer that we had been talking about earlier this year, and that's basically we had our staff member Greg go through and mark every single driveway or road intersection with our major commuter routes. And that's kind of part of the probe runs right now. We're trying to figure out a way to efficiently do that so we don't have to have people spot check 6,000 points on a number of roads, but we can maybe combine efforts so that we're tracking the appropriate ones. Any changes, we're making sure we're collecting those and getting them into the system, but not spending 6 months on trying to figure out that our data layer is exactly right. One other big thing that we're doing, we're working with Coast and Rockingham Planning Commission to identify locations and communities near transit stops that would be appropriate for a bike rack. Coast has a little bit of money. I think it's some remaining ARA funds or something like that. And communities, basically Coast will be purchasing the equipment, and all they ask is communities can use a soft match by installing the equipment. They need to install it and maintain it, but other than installing it, the equipment's free. You just need to put it in and make sure it's there. So we're looking for locations. I think we're still looking for locations. There's a little bit more time, but please contact Jeremy, me. You can contact Dan also. Get the message to me, and if you know any transit stops that could use a bike rack nearby. Last 2 years.
Yeah, and just quickly, a few other data collection efforts. Our culvert data collection effort, which we've talked about a few times, basically an effort to get town-wide inventories of culverts on public roads, so that the community can better prioritize repairs and maintenance of those culverts if they wish to do so. Greg, as Mark was talking about before, he's going to be taking that over and starting to reach out to communities. We're starting to get some of our data QA'd and QC'd from DES because they're housing all of this data. So they're just making sure that we're entering it into the Access database correctly, and that's slowly moving forward. But we wanted to go through that step before we went out to communities and actually ask for their input and ask them if we were missing any culverts or how we can customize it a little bit better for the individual communities. But so Greg's going to be taking that role over pretty soon, and also what he's working on right now is just an annual building permit summary, or annual building summary, where we collect building permits from communities and map out locations of new development. It's just another tool that communities and us as a regional planning commission can use to see where development's occurring and better plan for future development. So those are just the two updates that I have.
I have one quick update. It's on August 2nd, 2012 at 6 p.m. in the city's Somersworth City Council chambers. The Maine DOT is holding a public meeting in regards to the rehabbing of the Somersworth Berwick Bridge. And that's August 2nd, 6 p.m. Somersworth City Hall. And that's about it. Okay. Other business. Anyone have anything else they want to Bob, then?
I want to.
Okay. Go ahead.
I want to make mention of the outstanding job New Hampshire DOT has done in a number of areas. I've been beating them up regularly for 2 years, so I don't know how many people are aware of how far ahead this Baldy Turnpike process is right now, but I live up at exit 15, and believe me, I can see it. And I'm very proud of us as a state for what's being done up there. I'm also very pleased to see that we're apparently in an agreement, even if we haven't figured out how to fund spreading out the span on the replacement bridge, which goes in line with getting the tidal basin dredged. That took an awful lot of work, getting Maine and New Hampshire to agree on the replacement bridge. And that's a major issue for state transportation overall that goes well beyond highway. So, thank you.
Well, I would just like people around this table to be thinking about an equitable way to fund highway projects. Obviously, the gas tax is not sustainable now that each of us is driving a Prius that hits 50 miles per gallon. So, you know, there's got to be some way to bring some money into the state. And
Cigarette
obviously, I mean, unless we go up on the gas tax 15 cents, which isn't going to happen. And I'm sure the legislature will have at least a half dozen schemes that none of us will like.
Yeah, Prius tax.
Yeah, Prius tax, right.
Time of day tolling is one way, VMT is another way, reinstating the $30 that was supposed to be replaced.
Well, you know, the problem is when you only drive your car to church and to Hannaford's and you're 83 years old, that registration tax doesn't look like a good thing. That's what I said. Equitable is how I started out. So
It is equitable.
Yeah.
We get public transportation where it needs to be with 15.
I mean, I'm not asking for those suggestions today. If you got really good suggestions, write them down, think about them, we'll
Cigarette
talk them
tax.
on.
They lowered it.
Oh, well, the cigarette tax.
They lowered it
I
and
know,
lost,
but
and
they
lost
did-
money.
Get it back up.
Right.
That didn't get more money.
So, it's going to be a real problem in the future.
Jump in there.
Oh, I was just going to say, VMT is the most equitable. There's some issues with privacy people are concerned about being tracked. I think some of the technology out there is starting to address those privacy concerns with separate billing that is not bills you on miles and then has a separate billing portion that actually locates, or, you know, identifies you so that they put those together and you don't actually get tracked in any way about your mileage or anything like that. There are some issues with that people are concerned about. I think some of the concerns are justified, some aren't so justified, but VMT is fair. That's all I guess I have to say. And that's vehicle miles traveled.
Mark, is
Thank you.
why, when you
Yeah.
get your car registered every year, you wouldn't have to submit your mileage? And
I don't
pay on
understand
that?
why you can't just do the
I mean, it
odometer.
wouldn't be tracking you. You wouldn't know where you were going.
But that gets you to the
Total
same
mileage.
place. It's how you implement it, not.
Well, right.
That's jurisdictional
But-
boundaries too.
but
People don't
then
want
you
to pay
get
if they're
Department
not
of Safety involved, and you know what
driving
that's
into
like.
Hampshire with those miles, so.
So,
I drive down to
yeah,
Emmitsburg
better
3 times a
scheme.
year.
Yeah.
Keep it in mind, because I'm sure we're going to be hearing more about it.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chair, would you entertain a motion?
I was just going to ask for that.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.